me, Gavin on the Green Gab today. I love where we're going with this whole conversation about something that sounds really techy, regional materials.
Well, I guess to the average person it would sound that way, but in reality it really isn't. It's about making smart choices.
It's kind of like buying local, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, we're on live. We're on Facebook Live. So, hey to our Facebook Live listeners and viewers.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Kind of fun to give everybody a behind-the-scenes peek every now and then. And I really wanted to talk about, so this whole idea of regional materials gets talked about inside of the green home certification programs, right?
Yes.
So let me get a little technical.
It's required.
Well, it's one of the practices.
If you want to get the points for it.
Right. But I wanted to read National Green Building Standard, which comes through the National Association of Home Builders, is the one we work with the most.
Okay.
And I wanted to read their description of regional materials. So if y'all will bear with me for a minute, I don't like to do this often, but I wanted to make sure everybody technically understood the technical definition.
Right.
And then we're going to do our thing with it, okay, which is a lot more fun. But think buy local and you kind of get the idea, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And not just buying local, but made local or local-ish.
Local source.
Local-ish. So anyway, here's the technical definition of a regional material for a green home being built to certification standards. Material that originates, is produced, grows naturally, or occurs naturally within 500 miles of the construction site if transported by truck, or 1,500 miles of the construction site if transported for not less than 80% of the total distance by rail or water. So if something was coming in by railroad or water, they could do the last bit by truck. Products that are assembled or produced from multiple raw materials are considered regional materials if the weighted average, by weight or volume, of the distance the raw materials has been transported meets the distance criteria. So if you've got something that is made from products, like it takes 4 components or 4 materials,
right,
and all of those are from within 500 miles and shipped by truck, it still qualifies. So, number one, most companies will tell you if they meet this criteria pretty easily, because they want you to know about it. Yeah, they want you to know.
They're so used to it by now.
But here's the other thing, is that every part of the country is going to have different local, regional materials.
Oh, absolutely.
So 500 miles, it's 472 miles from my old condo in St. Louis to my new house in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. So anything between here and there is fair game.
Yeah.
So that means that we can take up most of the state of Missouri and a good bit of the state of Oklahoma.
Basically, you could put a pin in St. Louis, mm-hmm. and if you had do an exercise of a compass on a map.
Yep. Draw
a circle within a 500-mile radius. Anything from that distance would be fair game.
So in St. Louis, we see a lot of hardwood that's local because we have a lot of managed forests in Missouri. We see products like concrete that can be made locally because they're made from local cement products.
And a lot of sand.
There's a lot of sand. So we might even run into glass products that are made locally or regionally. In Oklahoma City, we have a lot of clay. Guess what we source regionally and locally?
Brick.
A lot of brick.
Well, same thing with Missouri. There's a lot of clay.
Yeah. No, not like there's... Yeah, you gotta come down to Oklahoma City and see me because it's like red dirt.
Kind of like Georgia?
Redder.
Wow.
Like when I wore white when I was a kid, if I fell down, Mom just cut it off because it was gone.
Wow.
It's that red. It didn't.
No cleaning that.
No cleaning. So let's see, what other kind of products do we see? Anything a lot of times things made from renewable materials, like a biologic, like a plant-based material, may also be regional or local. And then also you get a double whammy because it may also be a renewable resource.
There you go.
This is one big reason, by the way, that bamboo got such a conversation started for so long, is because bamboo is rapidly renewable because it's basically a big grass and it grows like crazy. But we had to transport it from China or other parts of Asia, and so there's a lot of transportation costs wrapped up in it.
Yeah, it did not make sense in the middle of the country.
Right.
Maybe it makes sense on the West Coast still, but there is still a large transportation piece that you have to factor into bamboo. So,
like, I love cork just because it's super comfortable. I have the knee issue, and so cork is super comfortable for me to walk on. but cork typically comes from Europe. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, I kind of got to balance that if that makes sense or not. To my knowledge, we don't have a huge amount of cork in the United States.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
So again, the whole idea is, back 150, 200 years ago, when people were settling the western, any part outside of urban areas in the United States that were being settled, you built with what was on hand.
Absolutely.
So we saw all kinds of houses then. We saw earth houses, we saw sod houses, we saw log houses.
It's basically what was in your backyard.
Yeah, or you picked a backyard according to materials and resources.
Right.
But you think about, why did Eskimos build out of ice?
That's what they had.
Yeah. So now with modern transportation and modern communication, we have this beautiful luxury of being able to pull materials in from anywhere, yet does that always make sense?
That's where you have to look at what your needs are and balance them with costs, environmental impact, you name it.
And your priorities.
And the priorities, absolutely.
Your priorities. So, for instance, if, let's say it was a really high priority to you to have something that had no chemicals in it, toxin-free, well, first thing you might want to do is look around and see if there's something that grows or is sourced or is produced locally.
Right.
And then you're getting a double, so you're ticking off on two categories. And if we all put a little more thought into our choices, a little more thought into those decisions, then we can bring that to our own homes, and that may align with our own personal values. And I think most of us, that may not be our first priority, but I think most of us do want to support the community and the area around us. That makes sense.
Well, absolutely, especially in construction, because think about it. Not a lot of national builders are in our market. Why?
Not.
Because we like local builders. Yeah. We like local companies. Now, granted, there's a couple that are here, and they're doing very well, but they will never really be the true change agents in the market, because the minute they do that, there's a possible backlash of, well, that's not how we do it in St. Louis.
That's an interesting thought, because Oklahoma City is very similar in that we have a lot of local builders, and the two biggest home builders in Oklahoma are both, or at least the two I'm aware of, are both local Oklahoma builders. And there's a handful of the national companies in, but like you said, not a lot. But I'd be curious, and that's a topic we might think of for another podcast, is what happens with national builders? Where are they exerting their change? Because they're driving some trends.
They are driving some trends. There was an interesting discussion that was going on a few years ago about the national builders that were trying to come in here versus the labor market. And for those of you that are not familiar with St. Louis in construction is a heavily unionized labor market. Like they talked about this morning.
But didn't we just pass right to work?
Does not matter.
It doesn't? Okay.
No, it does not matter.
Okay.
I mean, in reality...
Local labor.
Local labor is, if you look at a carpenter, somebody that's going to frame a house, I don't care if there's right to work or not, where are you going to get the guy from?
Yeah.
The carpenters union, right? To keep them, it's going to require higher pay. But anyway, so they had talked about, well, one national builder that was thinking about coming in the market, they had a reputation of being a union buster. But when they realized that they wouldn't be able to do it, because if they would have came in here and taken the lead on this, they would have been ostracized by the community of, that's not how we do things here.
Yeah.
They would have needed somebody else, one of the big local guys, to do it first. And that wasn't going to happen, because most of the big local builders are signatory members with the carpenters union.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's fun little conversations that, you don't necessarily realize are going on until you listen to a podcast.
So, when we come back, because believe it or not, we're almost at a break time again. When we come back, let's talk about kind of the process of looking for things in your community and in your region that would help you in your home, whether you're remodeling, just adding some things to your house or replacing some things. How can you start, and how can you keep this two-way relationship going between you and the community with your home. And for those of you on Facebook Live, we're signing out on Facebook Live, but we'll be back on the podcast in just a few minutes. Thanks.